Hey guys, my name is Khaled, and tonight we wander into the thick green breath of the Central American jungle. The air hums, humid, sweet, full of mosquitoes with questionable morals, and ahead of you, half swallowed by roots and vines, rises the outline of a forgotten Maya city. It's hard to see where the stone ends and the forest begins. You can almost feel the centuries pressing down, like the jungle's been keeping a secret so long it forgot it even had one. You're here to listen, or maybe more accurately, to drift off while I do the talking. You probably won't survive this, by the way, at least not in comfort. Between the heat, the howler monkeys, and the occasional snake that looks like it's made of green glass, ancient Maya rainforest life wasn't exactly a spa retreat. Still, tonight you get to explore it without the sweat, blisters, or, well, jaguars. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop your location and your local time down in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You take your first slow step under the canopy. The ground is soft, damp, breathing. Every sound seems amplified. The slow chirp of insects, the hush of leaves, the occasional drop of water falling from somewhere far above. You imagine, just for a moment, that you're not in 2025, but around the year 750 CE, somewhere near what we now call Tikal or Calakmul, or maybe a city whose name the jungle long ago erased. Your sandals, or in this case, your imagination, crunch over stone chips. The ancient path leads upward toward what must once have been a plaza. There's no guide, no street signs, just hints of geometry under the leaves. The Maya built with astonishing precision, cutting limestone blocks so perfectly that even after 1,000 years of earthquakes and rain, they still hold together without mortar. That's your first mainstream fact for the night. Maya cities weren't random clusters of ruins. They were deliberate, measured, and oriented towards the heavens, especially Venus. The sky above is mostly hidden by branches, but you can picture what it looked like when the city thrived. Hundreds of people moving between whitewashed temples, the scent of corn tortillas and incense blending in the warm air. Historians still argue whether Maya cities were primarily ceremonial centers or true urban hubs with year-round populations. Either way, you sense the rhythm that pulls through them. Market days, rituals, the rise and fall of drums echoing off stucco walls. You pause beside a half-collapsed stairway, brushing away a vine to find faint carvings beneath. The face of a king, or maybe a god. It's hard to tell which, since Maya rulers often styled themselves as divine extensions of the cosmos. Their eyes are almond-shaped, their nose proud, lips curved just slightly. You imagine the sculptor hunched there, maybe on a humid afternoon much like this one, muttering about how limestone dust gets everywhere. The humidity clings to your neck. You fan yourself lazily and try to remember if the Maya invented anything that could pass for air conditioning. They didn't, but they did master ventilation in their architecture. Temples often aligned with breezes to cool interior chambers. It's a small thing, but in this climate, it might have felt like luxury. Off to your left, something catches the moonlight, a fragment of pottery half buried in the soil. You pick it up. Its red slip glaze, still faintly visible, suggests it once held cacao, a prized drink for elites, frothy and spiced with chili. It's the ancient equivalent of a $5 latte. Cacao beans, in fact, were so valuable they served as currency. One bean might buy you a tamale. 100 could pay a craftsman. Suddenly, your little pottery shard feels like a lost receipt. There's a fringy tidbit for you. Some archaeologists believe Maya nobles mixed cacao with crushed flowers or fermented honey to make mild hallucinogenic brews used in ceremonies. Others think that's just residue contamination from the jungle. Either way, it explains why their rituals often involved vivid visions of talking serpents and celestial birds. A mosquito buzzes near your ear, proof that not everything here has changed. You wave it away and move deeper into the city. Vines cascade from temple tops like green waterfalls. You can almost hear children laughing, footsteps on the plaza stones, a vendor calling out the day's offerings, salt, maize dough, obsidian blades. In the distance, a drum beats, soft and even, like a heartbeat through the centuries. You rest on a fallen lintel and gaze toward a pyramid shape emerging from the mist. The jungle hums around you, indifferent but alive. It's strange, isn't it, how something so vast and complex could vanish into the trees, leaving behind only the echo of its own ambition. The Maya didn't disappear entirely, of course. Their descendants live across Central America today, speaking dozens of Maya languages, farming, weaving, storytelling. What vanished was the city life, the monumental rhythm of empire. You take a deep breath, catching the scent of damp leaves and stone dust. The air feels heavy with memory. Somewhere up there, in the canopy, a howler monkey starts up its haunting call, a sound like thunder being strangled by laughter. It's unsettling, but also oddly soothing, like nature's own lullaby for ruins. Your mind drifts to the people who once filled this space, the scribes who etched glyphs by torchlight, the stonemasons shaping corners that would last longer than their names, the priests calculating eclipses without telescopes. You can almost feel their presence, not ghostly exactly, but lingering, like the hum after a song ends. And then there's the sound of rain. Soft at first, then steady, pattering through leaves, landing on your shoulders in cool, rhythmic drops. The jungle exhales, and so do you. The ancient stones seem to glisten again, like the city itself is waking up beneath the storm. You lean back, letting the rain's whisper blend with the soft drone of nighttime insects. The story is just beginning, but already you sense that every leaf, every stone, every trickle of water holds a piece of something much larger, a civilization that understood silence. You wake, or maybe you never really slept, to the sound of dripping water. The rain has stopped, leaving the jungle soaked and shining. A mist curls around the trees, heavy and sweet, like steam from some ancient cauldron. You stretch, wipe a few drops from your face, and step carefully over a root as thick as your leg. The city waits beyond the fog, half hidden but calling you forward. Here, in the hazy dawn, you start to notice something about the ground. The stones are too straight, the slopes too regular to be random. You're walking on a plan, a grand, deliberate blueprint carved into the landscape. That's the first clue to how the Maya built their world. They didn't just pick any jungle hill and call it home. They measured, aligned, and chose with purpose. Historians still argue whether site selection was mainly religious, political, or practical. Maybe it was all three. You can imagine a group of elders standing here centuries ago, staring at the horizon, waiting for the morning star, Venus, to rise exactly where they needed it to. The Maya were mathematicians with mud on their feet. They watched the skies, felt the soil, and knew that power came from balance between water and stone, jungle and sun. The main plazas of cities like Tikal, Palenque, and Copan weren't random clusters. They were connected by causeways, called sakbeob, white roads made of crushed limestone that gleamed under moonlight. Picture it, a moonlit avenue stretching for kilometers through the trees, glowing like a ghostly ribbon. You walk one now, your sandals crunching softly. Fireflies blink at the edges, as if lighting your way through time. The heat begins to rise with the sun. Even the air feels heavy, like it's been steeped in green. You catch the smell of wet limestone, a clean mineral scent mixed with something organic, a reminder that everything here breathes, even the ruins. A small lizard darts across the path, its skin like living jade. Somewhere overhead, parrots argue about nothing important, like neighbors with too much coffee. You pause at what must have been a small platform, maybe an observation mound or a meeting place. From here you can see the outlines of several structures, most now just humps beneath the vines. But you notice the symmetry. Each building faces another, creating invisible lines that point toward the cardinal directions. The Maya believed these directions weren't just points on a compass, they were sacred axes connecting earth, sky, and the underworld. Each had its own color and deity: red for east, black for west, white for north, yellow for south. You smile at the thought that even in their city planning, they painted the world with meaning. You step closer to a set of stairs leading to what was once a temple base. The steps are steep, uneven, slick with moss. Climbing them feels like walking up the backbone of time itself. Halfway up, you rest, catching your breath. The jungle buzzes below like an enormous living circuit. You run your hand along the stone, cool, textured, almost humming with the memory of hands that shaped it centuries ago. A mainstream fact to drop here: many Maya cities were built atop earlier ones. Generations would construct new temples directly on top of old ones, layering history like a cake of limestone and devotion. Archaeologists who dig into these sites sometimes find 5, 6, even 9 earlier structures buried beneath. Imagine building your house on top of your great-great-grandparents' house and never tearing anything down, just honoring, adding, expanding. But here's a quirky tidbit that makes you chuckle. In some Maya cities, rulers reportedly staged massive feasts, not for people, but for the gods. They'd prepare dozens of clay pots filled with offerings, food, incense, sometimes even rubber balls, and then bury the entire feast beneath new construction. So yes, somewhere under your feet might be a 1,200-year-old lunch date that never got eaten. You keep climbing, heart steady, steps echoing faintly. At the top, the view opens. Jungle stretches in all directions, endless in green, the canopy rippling like a sea. You can see hints of other temples poking through the leaves, small, proud, defiant. The Maya built with permanence in mind, but even they couldn't predict how fast the rainforest would reclaim its own. You find yourself wondering how they decided where one city ended and another began. Historians still debate the boundaries. Some think the Maya lowlands were a patchwork of city-states, each with its own ruler, alliances, and rivalries. Others argue it was more like a fluid network, less like medieval kingdoms, and more like interconnected nodes in a living web. You picture it: glowing lines of trade, marriage, and tribute stretching through the jungle, flickering like veins under green skin. A sudden rustle in the trees catches your attention, a group of spider monkeys swinging effortlessly overhead. They move like liquid, golden fur flashing between branches. You can't help but smiling. It's easy to see why the Maya associated them with artistry and mischief. The monkey god Hunbats was said to inspire music and poetry. You half joke to yourself that maybe one of these guys invented the first jungle bongo beat. The heat is getting stronger now. You find shade beneath a wide ceiba tree, the sacred tree of life in Maya belief. Its trunk is straight and pale, its branches spreading like arms connecting heaven, earth, and the underworld. You rest a hand against it and feel a faint vibration, like the heartbeat of the jungle itself. You wonder if it's imagination or something deeper. The Maya certainly wouldn't have questioned it. As you stand there, the mist begins to lift, revealing more of the city's bones. Low platforms, half-collapsed walls, what might have been a palace courtyard. The stones glow pale gold in the new light, and you realize how much intention lived in every detail. The way the plazas align to catch the sunrise, the way the temple tops rise like steps to the gods. You look around, imagining workers dragging limestone blocks up steep ramps, sweating under the same sun you feel now. They used wooden levers, ropes of twisted fiber, and sheer willpower. No wheels, no beasts of burden, just teamwork and endless patience. And still, somehow, they built pyramids that touched the clouds. It's almost funny, you think, how modern builders need cranes and machines while the Maya used astronomy and stubbornness. Maybe progress is just louder, not smarter. You take one last long look at the stone beneath your feet, the place where planning met faith, where geometry met rain. The jungle hums, birds call, and somewhere a breeze stirs through the ceiba branches above. The jungle shifts as you move downhill, the light softening into a deep green gloom. The air smells faintly of wet stone and blooming orchids. Somewhere ahead, water is moving, a low, constant murmur that sounds both alive and eternal. You follow the sound, stepping carefully along what looks like a shallow trench lined with smooth stones. It's too precise to be natural. This is where the Maya worked their quiet miracles, with water, not gold. You crouch beside the trench and trace a groove with your finger. It's part of an ancient canal, one of thousands built to channel rainwater from the city's high plazas down into vast underground reservoirs. These systems weren't just clever, they were essential. The lowland Maya world didn't have rivers you could always rely on. The rainy season came in dramatic bursts, flooding everything, then vanished for months. Without good planning, whole cities could dry out before the next storm. You picture it. Engineers, barefoot, sunburned, maybe grumbling, digging through limestone with stone tools, shaping conduits that would funnel every drop of rain toward hidden cisterns called chultuns. These bottle-shaped chambers, carved deep into the bedrock, collected and stored water coolly beneath the earth. You imagine peering down into one. Darkness, a glimmer of reflection, maybe the echo of your own breath. Here's your mainstream fact for the night. Tikal, one of the greatest Maya cities, had a water system so advanced it included sand filtration. Yep, ancient filtration, 1,000 years before anyone in London thought to clean their drinking water. Clay pipes, gravity-fed drains, even runoff regulators, they built it all. And, because the universe always has a sense of humor, they probably didn't brag about it once. You follow the canal deeper into the forest, listening to the subtle trickle of water that still moves here after all these centuries. The air gets cooler, the ground darker. You reach a clearing where a shallow pool reflects the canopy above, a mirror of green and silver. Maybe this was a reservoir, or maybe just a sacred pool. The Maya didn't always separate the practical from the divine. To them, water wasn't just a resource, it was a portal to the underworld, Xibalba. Every drop was a thread connecting life and spirit. You crouch beside the edge and watch ripples form where insects skim the surface. Somewhere beneath that calm mirror lies one of the civilization's most beautiful contradictions, a people surrounded by lush greenery who lived in constant fear of drought. Archaeologists have found pollen evidence that the region went through brutal dry spells in the 9th century. Crops failed, reservoirs cracked. Temples still gleamed white in the sun, but the people were thirsty. It's a haunting image, cities designed for eternity brought low by invisible air. Historians still argue whether climate change alone caused the Maya collapse, or if politics, war, and over-farming made things worse. You suspect, like most human stories, it was everything all at once. You dip your fingers into the water. It's cool, surprisingly clear. The taste, if you dared to try it, would probably be earthy, metallic, maybe a hint of ancient limestone. You imagine priests performing rituals here during the dry season, lowering offerings into the depths. Jade beads, carved shells, or even blood drawn from their own arms. They'd chant to Chok, the rain god, asking for mercy. Somewhere in the distance, thunder would grumble like an old man agreeing to nothing in particular. There's a fringe tidbit for you. Some early explorers claim to have found rain idols carved from coral and shaped like toads, symbols of fertility and rebirth. But modern archaeologists suspect many were actually naturally eroded rocks mistaken for art. It's a nice reminder that even professionals sometimes just guess very confidently. You keep walking, the sound of the jungle folding over itself in layers. Chirps, clicks, the occasional bark of a monkey echoing through the canopy. The humidity presses against your skin like a blanket fresh from a dryer. You pause under a strangler fig, its roots coiled tight around a buried pyramid, and realize that the forest isn't just reclaiming the city, it's wearing it like jewelry. As your eyes adjust to the shifting light, you notice faint ridges underfoot, raised stone causeways, or sakbeab, as the Maya called them, white roads. Once, these paths gleamed with crushed limestone so bright they glowed in moonlight. You imagine walking them centuries ago, torch in hand, following their luminous ribbons across the jungle to other cities miles away. Trade routes, ceremonial arteries, lifelines of an empire made of stone and silence. The mainstream fact here: the Maya network of sakbeab connected settlements across hundreds of kilometers, some stretching over 100 miles. They were so precisely built that in modern LiDAR scans, they appear like veins running across the forest floor. Ancient GPS, no batteries required. You follow one, letting the steady slope pull you upward. It's strange. These causeways weren't built for wheels. The Maya didn't have beasts of burden, no oxen or horses. Everything was carried by hand or on backs. You picture porters moving in rhythm, balancing baskets filled with obsidian, cacao beans, and salt. It must have been grueling, but there's a quiet dignity in that endurance. And then, because every ancient culture had its quirks, here's your fringe tidbit. Some archaeologists believe these sakbeab weren't purely practical. They might have symbolized the Milky Way, connecting earthly cities to the heavens. Which honestly makes sense. If you're hauling 50 pounds of obsidian through 90% humidity, you deserve to imagine yourself walking among the stars. You crest a rise, and the jungle opens slightly. Ahead stands something taller than the trees, a temple, its top swallowed by green. The stairs are eroded, edges softened by centuries of rain, but the geometry is unmistakable, the stepped pyramid form that defines the Maya skyline. You approach slowly, your steps sinking into leaf litter. The temple seems alive. Vines creep along its flanks, and lizards dart in and out of cracks like tiny caretakers. You tilt your head back and let your gaze climb the structure until it meets the sky. The height isn't intimidating. It's hypnotic. You can almost feel the rhythm of countless feet that once ascended these steps during rituals, each step a prayer, each breath a plea. You start climbing, one cautious step after another. Halfway up, you pause to catch your breath. The air up here moves differently, cooler, thinner, alive with bird calls. From this height, the forest looks endless, a rolling ocean of green with no shore in sight. You rest your hand against the stone, feeling its warmth. The blocks fit together so neatly that you could almost believe they grew that way. The Maya didn't use metal tools or wheels, yet they achieved precision that modern engineers still admire. Historians still argue whether they used sand, water, or sound vibrations to move and align such heavy stones. No definitive answer yet, just whispers of genius lost to time. At the summit, the space opens into a small platform. The wind is stronger, and for the first time you can see what the ancient city might have looked like. A patchwork of plazas, temples, and homes stretched across the valley. From up here, the canals you visited earlier look like faint scars cutting through the greenery. You imagine the view centuries ago, when fires glowed in courtyards below, and incense smoke rose in delicate spirals towards the stars. You walk to the altar at the center of the platform. It's worn, its carvings mostly gone, but a faint outline remains. A figure holding a serpent, eyes wide, mouth open in chant. Offerings might have been burned here, or precious objects buried within the stone. The air feels heavier, like the past hasn't quite moved on. You close your eyes for a second, just listening. The forest is quieter up here, the soundscape thinner, like standing on the edge of a dream. You can almost hear the hum of drums, the low murmur of priests reciting to Kanich Ahau, the sun god, asking him to rise another day. And because you can't resist, you mutter to yourself, "Well, he did, so I guess the ritual worked." It feels absurd, but also comforting, like speaking into an ancient echo and getting an answer back in the warmth of sunlight. You walk slowly around the platform, noting faint glyphs carved into the balustrade. The Maya script, dense, elegant, mysterious, still hasn't been fully deciphered. We understand much of it, but not all. Some words remain stubbornly silent. It's like finding a love letter from 1,000 years ago and only understanding every third word. You lean close to one glyph. It looks like a jaguar curling around a spiral. Maybe it's a name, or maybe just a reminder that power was always watching. You step back, letting your eyes sweep the horizon again. The vastness is dizzying. Somewhere beyond the trees, other pyramids still stand, unexcavated, untouched, dreaming under centuries of roots. You think about how much history still sleeps underfoot. Maybe whole cities, maybe libraries, maybe people's stories carved in stone, just waiting for light. And then, just as you're thinking all this might be too poetic, a bird screeches above you. Sharp, loud, unbothered. You laugh quietly. Nature doesn't care for sentimentality. You begin your descent, careful not to slip. The steps are narrow, uneven, slick with moss. You count each one like a heartbeat, bringing you closer to the earth again. When you reach the base, the air feels heavier, but safer, like you've just been gently returned to gravity. You glance up one last time. The pyramid looms, unbothered, half swallowed by time. For a fleeting second, you wonder if the builders ever imagined a stranger from another world would climb their temple centuries later, No offering, no prayer, just curiosity and Wi-Fi in his pocket. Probably not. But maybe that's the real magic of history. It doesn't need permission to be remembered. The jungle hums around you as you keep following the white road until the stones disappear into a clearing scattered with pottery shards and low mounds half covered by moss. The air smells faintly of clay, rich, damp, and ancient. You kneel to pick up a fragment, running your thumb along the smooth inside and the rough outer surface. You can almost feel the fingers that shaped it centuries ago, pressing soft earth into purpose. This was once the artisan's quarter, the heart of creation. You can picture it. Low workshops made of wattle and daub, the rhythmic sound of grinding stones, smoke rising from kilns. The people here weren't priests or kings, they were the quiet makers, the hands that filled the city with beauty. Pottery for cooking, obsidian blades for trade, jade jewelry for ceremony. Their names are mostly lost, but their fingerprints remain, literally baked into the clay. You wander between fallen walls and half-buried grinding stones. In one corner, a slab with faint red paint still clings to its surface. A mural once danced across this space. Spirals, maze stalks, maybe even God's midstep. The color palette of the Maya world wasn't dull. Cinnabar reds, jade greens, cobalt blues, all shimmering in the sun. Some pigments came from crushed insects or minerals so rare that traders carried them hundreds of miles through the forest. Here's your mainstream fact for the night. Maya artisans created the world's first known Maya blue, a pigment that still baffles chemists. It's a mix of indigo and a clay mineral called palygorskite, heated together to form a shade that resists fading even after centuries of humidity. Modern labs can replicate it, but the exact firing method, the temperature, the timing, the ritual, is still debated. You imagine a group of painters huddled around a fire, waiting for the right hue to bloom, one of them muttering, "A little hotter, no, too much. Oh, there goes another batch." Ancient chemistry meets artistic stubbornness. The fringy tidbit tonight? Some researchers think that artisans treated their materials almost like living beings. Clay wasn't just mud, it had spirit. Firing was transformation, a ritual as much as a process. Before shaping pots, they'd whisper small prayers or blow across the clay's surface to wake it. Whether or not that's true, it makes you look differently at every pot fragment you touch, like holding a conversation in your hand. You step over a collapsed wall and nearly trip on something smooth, an obsidian flake, black and sharp enough to shave with. Obsidian was the Maya's glass, their scalpel, their mirror. The way it catches light is hypnotic. You tilt it and see your reflection distorted and flickering. For a second, it feels like the past is looking back. A soft breeze carries the scent of copal, the incense resin still used in ceremonies today. It mingles with the damp earth smell, rich and sweet. You follow it to a pit lined with stones. It's an old kiln, cracked but recognizable. You crouch beside it, tracing its rim. Firing pottery in a rainforest wasn't easy. Humidity could ruin everything. Artisans learned to read the air, to feel the right moment before lighting the fire. Too soon, and the pots exploded. Too late, and the clay lost its voice. You chuckle softly, half admiration, half sympathy. Even now, your modern oven sometimes burns pizza. Imagine trying to guess fire temperature by hand. As you walk on, the sound of your footsteps changes, the solid clack of limestone to the soft whisper of packed clay. The terrain here was once flattened for weaving looms. Threads of cotton and henequen fibers were spun into cloth so fine that Spanish chroniclers centuries later couldn't believe it came from savages. Some garments were painted, embroidered, or even woven with jade dust to shimmer in sunlight. You can almost hear the soft clack of wooden spindles, the rustle of fabric, and the faint hum of songs that kept rhythm. Women and men worked side by side in these spaces. Though many artisan names are lost, some signatures survived. A glyph here, a stylized mark there. Tiny rebellions against anonymity. One bowl, excavated at Calakmul, bears the mark of Aj Ka'ak, meaning he of fire. He might have been proud of his firing skills, or maybe just had a temper. Hard to say. You pause beside what used to be a workshop floor. Scattered across it are half-shaped figurines, faces with wide eyes, animals mid-stride, gods frozen in mid-laughter. They're small, almost playful, a reminder that even in this grand civilization, someone took joy in crafting the ridiculous. One little sculpture shows a monkey drinking from a bowl. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it was a prayer. Maybe both. Historians still argue whether these figures were toys, religious offerings, or teaching tools, but you can't help feeling that whoever made them must have smiled. Art is rarely born from duty alone. It needs a spark of delight. You sit for a moment, leaning back against a fallen lintel, listening to the jungle breathing through the ruins. Cicadas buzz. A frog croaks somewhere unseen. The artisan's quarter is quiet now, but if you close your eyes, you can almost hear the heartbeat of creation. The grind of pigment, the hiss of kiln fires, the laughter of neighbors sharing a meal after a long day's work. Your mind drifts to a modern echo, how we mass produce everything now, how machines hum where hands once shaped. The Maya didn't have assembly lines, but they had something more intimate, a shared rhythm between person and material. Each object was a small act of devotion. A beetle crawls over your boot, gleaming green like a piece of jade. You watch it climb onto a broken figurine's arm and pause there, motionless, as if posing. You can't help it. You laugh quietly. Nice modeling, buddy. The beetle doesn't answer. It just flexes its wings and buzzes away, leaving you alone with the ghosts of makers long gone. You rise, dust off your hands, and take one last look around. The artisan's quarter might be silent, but it feels alive. The walls hum softly with the memory of effort and imagination. The air itself seems to glow with unseen colors, traces of Maya blue lingering like whispers. You walk onward, past the edge of the workshop, back into the shadowed forest. Somewhere ahead, a faint scent. You follow that sweet, smoky scent until the trees begin to thin again. The light changes. The dim, dappled green of the forest becomes a pale gold glow, as if the air itself has decided to take a deep breath. The sound changes too. Instead of dripping leaves and cicadas, you start to hear the faint rhythm of movement. Footsteps, chatter, the echo of trade that once filled this place. You stepped into the old marketplace. Even now, long after the stalls have vanished, you can feel its energy. The ground is unusually flat here, paved with smooth limestone and lined with the faint outlines of platforms where merchants once sat, spreading their goods in neat rows. You can almost hear it, the soft rustle of woven baskets, the gentle clink of pottery lids being lifted to reveal treasures inside. The Maya markets were alive with color, scent, and sound. Historians believe they traded everything from everyday cornmeal to luxury jade. There were cacao beans, so valuable they were used as currency, obsidian blades, shells from distant coasts, salt, honey, cotton cloth, and carved figurines of the gods. That's your mainstream fact for this section. Cacao beans were, quite literally, money in much of the Maya world. A rabbit might cost 10 beans, a slave could cost a few hundred. Imagine paying for your groceries in chocolate. Delicious, yes, but a little sticky on hot days. You kneel beside what used to be a merchant's platform. The stone still smells faintly of earth and time. You picture the early morning rush, farmers arriving with maize and heavy baskets, traders from distant cities unpacking obsidian blades wrapped in palm leaves. Maybe there's a scribe sitting nearby, keeping tallies in a folded codex. Maybe someone's complaining about prices, proof that humanity never changes. You imagine the noise, not loud or chaotic, but rhythmic. Murmurs of bargaining, laughter, the swish of cloth, the clack of beads. Every trade was personal. There were no cash registers here, just face-to-face trust and centuries of ritualized exchange. The fringe tidbit tonight. According to some scholars, certain Maya markets might have been overseen by professional market officials who didn't use written laws but settled disputes based on scent. Yes, scent. They judged the freshness of goods, especially cacao, by smell alone. Some even say a few officials trained their noses like sommeliers, detecting fake beans or spoiled goods just by inhaling. Imagine explaining that career choice to your parents. You stroll slowly through what used to be rows of stalls. Here, perhaps, was the food section. Baskets of tamales, smoked turkey, roasted maize cakes. You catch a whiff of something earthy and rich, maybe a phantom scent of atole, a warm maize drink still enjoyed today. You can almost taste it. Thick, slightly sweet, the kind of thing that sticks to your ribs and your memories. Further ahead, you find small bits of carved shell, polished like ivory. That must have been a jeweler's stall. You imagine the shine of shell necklaces glinting in sunlight, or traders holding up a mirror of obsidian to show a customer their reflection, a face from centuries ago looking back. Historians still argue whether these markets were daily or weekly events. Some say every city had its market day, when nearby villages would gather and trade. Others believe they were constant, a living heartbeat of commerce. Either way, it's hard not to feel a certain peace here, a calm in knowing that life wasn't just about kings and wars, it was about people buying, selling, eating and talking. You pause near a low wall with faint traces of red paint. Perhaps it was once the boundary of a food court. Yes, even in antiquity, the Maya had their version of a hangout spot. You imagine a group of young apprentices sitting together, laughing over bowls of spicy stew, complaining about their masters, trading gossip about the next festival. You grin. Human nature, eternal and undefeated. A soft breeze stirs through the plaza. A leaf drifts down and lands in a small puddle at your feet. The reflection wavers, and for a second, you swear you can see people moving. Shadows of traders walking past, baskets balanced on their heads. A trick of the light, surely. But part of you likes to believe that history leaves faint echoes, if you're quiet enough to listen. You sit down on a warm rock at the center of the plaza, letting the stillness wash over you. You try to picture yourself as a visitor from another Maya city, perhaps coming from Copan or Calakmul, your pack filled with salt or woven mats. You greet the guards at the entrance,
exchange polite nods, and then step into the hum of life, the smell of roasted cacao, the laughter of children running between stalls, the distant beat of a drum signaling noon. You reach into your imaginary pouch and pull out your cacao beans, your wallet of the past, and wonder what you might buy. Maybe a carved turtle pendant for good luck? Maybe a ball painted with tiny hieroglyphs that spell peaceful dreams. Or maybe you trade for a story, a traveler's tale from someone who's seen the sea, describing waves as high as temples. A bird calls from somewhere above, its tone sharp and curious. You look up, shielding your eyes from a shaft of sunlight. The bird perches on a stone column, watching you like it's waiting for you to finish your transaction. "Sorry," you whisper, smiling. "Out of beans." The bird tilts its head, unimpressed, and flies away. You chuckle softly, standing again. Around you, the marketplace glows in the late afternoon light. Quiet now, but you can sense the pulse of what once was. Every civilization leaves behind its stones, but markets leave behind something warmer. The echo of exchange, of community, of small human interactions that built empires more gently than any war ever could. As you start to leave, you glance back one last time. The air seems to shimmer slightly, as if stirred by invisible movement. Maybe it's just the heat. Or maybe, if you listen closely enough, you can still hear the rustle of baskets and the low murmur of trade, a lullaby of civilization, steady and eternal. You smile, stretch your shoulders, and start walking again, following the causeway that's... You move closer to the heart of the city, where the jungle suddenly opens into a plaza so wide and bright it feels like stepping into sunlight after a dream. The air is still, heavy with the faint scent of limestone dust and old incense. For a moment, you forget the trees entirely. The world here is all stone and sky. The temples rise around you like frozen waves. Each one is tiered, deliberate, humming with geometry. You stand at the base of the tallest, craning your neck until you almost lose your balance. The pyramid soars upward, every step a story carved into the past. You can feel the rhythm of human intention in its shape, precise, mathematical, devotional. Here's your mainstream fact. The Maya were extraordinary architects and astronomers. Many of their temples were aligned with celestial events, solstices, equinoxes, even Venus's path through the sky. At Chichen Itza, sunlight on the spring equinox creates the illusion of a serpent slithering down the steps of the Temple of Kukulkan. Stone meets sunlight and the gods descend to earth. No CGI required. You walk slowly toward the steps, brushing your hand against the warm limestone. The stone feels alive, almost pulsing, as if it's storing centuries of sun. You start to climb, and each step sends a faint echo down into the plaza. It's a rhythm older than music, older than memory. Halfway up, you stop to catch your breath. The city spreads out below, a pattern of temples, courtyards, and causeways stitched together like a mosaic. The jungle beyond looks endless, rippling green under the afternoon light. You imagine how it must have looked 1,000 years ago. Banners fluttering, incense smoke curling skyward, the sound of flutes drifting on the air. The Maya built with purpose. These temples weren't just religious sites, they were calendars made solid. Some even functioned as observatories.
You picture an ancient astronomer standing where you are, peering along the temple's edge to mark the exact moment of sunrise. No computers, no telescopes, just a deep patience and an even deeper connection to the sky. And here's your fringe tidbit. Certain scholars believe that Maya architects tuned their buildings acoustically, shaping the steps so that a single clap at the base would echo back like the call of a sacred bird. If you visit some ruins today and clap, you can hear it, a ghostly chirp like a quetzal answering across time. Accidental or intentional, historians still argue, of course, but if it was planned, it's one of the most poetic examples of architecture ever designed. You test the idea yourself, clapping once, softly. The sound bounces off the steps and returns faintly distorted. Maybe it's imagination, or maybe, just for a second, you hear a distant trill in reply. You laugh quietly. "Nice touch," you whisper. At the top, the air feels different, thinner, cooler, almost sacred. The summit is small, barely big enough for a handful of people. The altar stone sits in the center, smooth with age, its edges rounded like worn bone. You kneel beside it, running your fingers over faint carvings, sunbursts, spirals, and a figure holding a torch to the heavens. You can almost sense the rituals that once unfolded here. The priests dressed in elaborate feathered robes, faces painted red and black, chanting as the sun dipped low. But there's peace in the image too. Not all ceremonies were grim. Many celebrated harvests, seasons, and the return of light. You imagine the crowd gathered below, faces tilted upward, waiting for that first spark of torchlight to mark the turning of time. The horizon begins to soften. The sunlight turns golden, sliding gently over the treetops. From this height, you see birds spiraling lazily on warm air currents, and for a moment, the whole world feels still. You think about the precision it took to build all this. No metal tools, no beasts of burden, no wheels. Just human ingenuity and an unwavering belief that the cosmos cared about geometry. The pyramid beneath you was built for eternity, and somehow it succeeded. You lie back for a moment on the warm stone, staring at the sky. The clouds move slowly, like ships drifting through a pale ocean. A single hawk glides by, circling effortlessly above the city. You wonder if the ancient priests saw the same bird and read omens in its path. Or maybe, like you, they just watched in silence, letting the quiet settle in their bones. A soft breeze stirs your hair. You sit up, the view stretching endlessly in all directions. To the west, the sun begins its slow descent, casting long shadows that turn the temple steps into stripes of gold and shadow. It's hypnotic, this dance between light and structure, as if the building itself is breathing with the sky. You whisper, half to yourself, half to the city. You people really knew how to build a mood. A faint chuckle escapes you. Humor feels natural here, this balance between awe and absurdity. Ancient genius and jungle humidity. As twilight deepens, fireflies begin to blink in the trees below, tiny lights answering the stars that are just beginning to appear above. For a moment, the two worlds, earth and sky, mirror each other perfectly. You stand slowly, stretching your legs, and take one last look at the horizon. The air is cooler now, tinged with the smell of night-blooming flowers. You start your descent carefully, one step at a time, the echo of your footsteps fading into the growing dark. When you reach the ground again, the plaza feels different, quieter. The stones are still warm underfoot, but the energy has softened. You glance back at the pyramid, its edges blurred in shadow, and feel a quiet gratitude for the hands that built it. You follow the faint scent of smoke and flowers until the path opens into a quiet courtyard, wide, enclosed by low walls and pillars carved with figures that seem to move in the shifting torchlight. The night has settled fully now, warm and deep, pressing close like a blanket. The moon sits low, fat and golden, brushing the temple tops with silver light. The air here feels different, heavy, reverent, like the city itself is holding its breath. You step softly across the worn flagstones, trying not to break the rhythm of silence that has lasted 1,000 years. In the center of the courtyard stands a circular altar, cracked but still proud. Around it are smaller stones, household shrines perhaps. You can almost see the people who once gathered here, families lighting small fires, whispering prayers, leaving food or flowers for ancestors. Religion in the Maya world wasn't locked away in temples. It lived inside homes, woven into daily life like thread through fabric. That's your mainstream fact tonight. The Maya pantheon was vast and intertwined with the natural world. There wasn't one distant god ruling from above. There were hundreds, spirits of maize, rain, wind, fire, bees, and even time itself. They weren't worshipped through fear, but through relationship. Every crop planted, every hearth lit, every drink poured was a quiet thank you to the unseen forces that kept everything in balance. You kneel near one of the smaller shrines. The stone is rough, worn smooth by countless hands. A faint carving remains, perhaps of Chuck, the rain god with his curling nose and kind eyes. You can almost imagine the hope that must have filled this place during the dry season. Children waiting, parents praying, eyes lifted toward a sky that sometimes refused to answer. And here's your fringe tidbit. Some archaeologists believe that certain Maya families kept small talking idols, little wooden or ceramic figures said to whisper answers during rituals. Most scholars think it was just ventriloquism, or, more kindly, the wind playing tricks. But a few argue the practice was tied to trance states where the line between sound and imagination blurred. Either way, it's charming to think of people gathering around a chatty statue for advice about the weather or love. A breeze stirs, and for a heartbeat, you think you hear a soft sigh from the stones. Maybe it's just air moving through cracks, or maybe one of the old idols is still chatty. You stand and walk slowly around the courtyard. The pillars are carved with intricate scenes, priests offering incense, dancers mid-step, a woman holding a bundle of maize like a newborn. The artistry is breathtaking. You run your hand along the grooves, tracing the ridges of time. You pause at one particular carving, a large, masked-like face, half human, half jaguar. The eyes seem to follow you, amused but not threatening. You remember reading that the jaguar was sacred to the Maya, a symbol of power, night, and the underworld. To walk with the jaguar was to walk between worlds, to move unseen between life and death. You murmur softly, "Guess that makes your midnight guest, huh?" The jungle answers with a distant growl. You freeze, then laugh nervously. Probably just a howler monkey. Probably. The night deepens.
Fireflies blink lazily above the altar. You sit cross-legged on a fallen stone and imagine what a night here might have been like centuries ago. Drums echoing softly from distant temples, flickers of torchlight painting walls gold and red, the smell of burning copal thick and sweet. A priest steps forward in your mind's eye, his robe embroidered with feathers that shimmer in the firelight. He's chanting, not loudly, but rhythmically, a sound that hums in your chest. The people respond, murmuring, swaying slightly. Children peek between parents' legs, eyes wide, half afraid and half awed. This isn't a religion of fear, it's one of rhythm. The gods aren't distant judges, but partners in the dance of survival. You can almost feel it in your pulse, how every beat of your heart syncs with the heartbeat of the world. Historians still argue whether the Maya saw gods as literal beings or more as forces of balance. The truth probably lies somewhere between. The gods were both symbols and presences, woven into everything, from the rain that nourished maize to the stars that guided farmers home at night. You tilt your head back, watching those same stars glint overhead. They look close enough to touch. Somewhere up there is the Milky Way, the White Road as the Maya called it, the celestial mirror of their Sakbeob. Every path on earth had a reflection in the sky. You find yourself smiling. There's something beautifully logical about a world where even the cosmos has good urban planning. You breathe in deeply. The air tastes faintly metallic, like the edge of rain. Maybe Chuck heard you. Maybe he's testing your sincerity. You glance up, half expecting a sudden downpour, but the sky remains clear. For now. You notice a small carving near the altar, something you hadn't seen before. It shows two figures kneeling beside a bowl, their hands touching above it. The bowl itself is filled with something that looks like maize or cacao, an offering of friendship, perhaps, or partnership. The Maya often tied human relationships to ritual exchange. Love and devotion weren't separate from worship. You can't help but smiling at that. Ancient marriage counseling, you whisper. Offer a snack, solve an argument. It's strangely comforting to realize how timeless that idea is. You stay there for a while, letting the calm settle in your bones. The night feels softer now, the darkness more like a blanket than a void. The sounds of the forest fade into the background, the rustle of leaves, the distant rush of water, the chirp of insects, all blending into a single, steady lullaby. The courtyard seems to glow faintly in the moonlight, the carvings alive with shifting shadows. You imagine the ancestors watching, amused and patient, proud that their stories are still being whispered under the same stars. You stand, stretching slowly. As you turn to leave, the air moves again, and a petal from some unseen flower drifts past your cheek, brushing it lightly. You take that as a sign, a gentle good night from the gods, or maybe just the jungle saying, "You've lingered long enough." You smile, whisper a quiet thank you, and step back into the shadows, following the faint.
The steps take you down into a quieter part of the city, a place that feels lived in, not ceremonial. The air is warmer here, heavier with the scent of maize dough, smoke, and damp stone. You pass through narrow alleys between clay houses, their walls still faintly painted in reds and yellows. It feels like walking into the heartbeat of the city itself, the part that never made it into textbooks. You pause at an open doorway where the remains of a hearth sit in the center of the floor. The stones are blackened, cracked, but there's a sense of life still clinging to them. Around the edges of the room, you spot grinding stones, shards of pottery, and a spindle whorl carved from bone. The quiet tells a story that no king's monument ever could. This was a home. And this is where you meet the women of the Maya. You can almost see her,
the woman who once lived here, kneeling by the fire, her hair tied up, arms strong from years of grinding maize on the metate. The rhythmic sound of stone against stone fills the space, steady and comforting. The smell of roasting tortillas mixes with the faint sweetness of cacao. Here's your mainstream fact for this stretch of the night. In Maya society, women were central to daily life and economy. They managed households, produced textiles, brewed cacao, and in some cases even held political and religious authority. Royal women were recorded as rulers and diplomats, carving their names right into stelae. You smile, imagining a queen sitting for her portrait while the scribe complains about the humidity ruining his ink. Even in the jungle, you murmur, there's always paperwork. But it wasn't only queens who shaped the world. Ordinary women's work built the bones of the city, the looms and kilns, the gardens and food that kept families strong. Their fingerprints are still pressed into pottery shards buried in the soil, waiting to be found by curious hands centuries later. You step further into the home, crouching beside a faintly visible mural. Time has faded it, but you can still make out figures. Women weaving cloth, children chasing each other, a dog curled beside the fire. The colors, reds, ochres, and a flash of turquoise still cling stubbornly to the wall. Your fingers hover over the paint. You really wanted to be remembered, huh? You whisper. The air shifts slightly, and you swear you smell fresh dough and honey. For your fringe tidbit for the night, archaeologists recently uncovered a Maya weaving workshop believed to be run entirely by women who crafted textiles not just for local use, but for trade across the region. Some threads contain traces of indigo and cochineal, rare dyes that were once as valuable as jade. So yes, these women were entrepreneurs, artists, and engineers in their own right. Imagine the laughter and gossip in that workshop, the hum of spinning wheels, the occasional exasperated sigh when a pattern went wrong. You can almost hear someone teasing, if the gods had to weave the sky, it'd never get finished. You find a small clay figurine half buried in the dirt near the wall. It's a woman holding a spindle in one hand and what looks like a maize stalk in the other. The details are simple, almost playful. Historians still argue whether these figurines were household idols, toys, or small charms of good luck. You turn it gently in your hand. Maybe it was all three. Maybe a child made it for her mother as a gift. Outside, the sky has deepened into true night. The jungle hum has softened into that hypnotic layered chorus that only happens past midnight. You step out into the open air again and find a courtyard lined with small pits filled with water. The reflections shimmer faintly in the moonlight. You catch your own reflection between the stars and think about the balance women had to strike every day. Nurturing, trading, creating, worshiping. Their lives weren't simple, but they were deeply connected to land, to rhythm, to purpose. Historians still argue whether Maya society was patriarchal or more balanced. In truth, it varied from city to city. Some royal women, like Lady Six Sky and Lady Evening Star, wielded power that rivaled kings, leading armies and commissioning temples. Others ruled from behind the scenes, shaping alliances through marriage and diplomacy. You imagine Lady Six Sky, standing tall on a palace balcony, dressed in jade and feathers, surveying the city below. The night wind lifts her hair, the sound of drums echoing from the distance. She knows her decisions tonight will ripple through centuries. And somewhere in the same city, another woman grinds maize by the fire, unaware that her daily rhythm is what keeps the world turning. Both lives, both essential. You sit by one of the water pits and trail your fingers through the cool surface.
The reflections ripple and distort. You realize this is a moment of stillness, of quiet appreciation for the invisible hands that shaped history. A gentle laugh escapes you. You know, you murmur, for a civilization obsessed with kings, it's the women who kept the lights on. A leaf drifts down, landing on the water beside you. The reflections wobble, and for a second you see her. The weaver, the queen, the mother, smiling faintly back at you. Then the surface settles, and she's gone. You take a slow breath, feeling the weight of that quiet magic. The air smells faintly of smoke and flowers again, the same scent that led you into the temple courtyard before. Somewhere deeper in the jungle, a soft rumble of thunder rolls. It's a reminder that this world is alive, that the stories you're walking through still breathe in the people who descend from these women today. You stand, brushing dust from your knees. The moon is higher now, painting everything in silver. Ahead, a path glows faintly, one that seems to sink downward into the earth. You follow it slowly, feeling the cool air rise from below. There's something waiting there, something sacred, something about water, darkness, and the strange ways the Maya spoke to their gods beneath the ground. You tighten your grip on your flashlight and smile. Well, if we're going underground, I hope the gods like visitors.